And as we're coming to this space of ease, resting in any way you choose, maybe take a few deep inhales and longer exhales. Those longer exhales help us settle into the weight of the body and helps invite that sense of ease. And maybe we take a moment to notice any sounds around us, anything that might be happening in our space, acknowledging that, becoming aware of that. And then letting that go if we can, bringing awareness to our internal experience and perhaps beginning with the physical. For some of us, we may have sensations that are already calling to us. And for some of us, we may choose just to check into some of those spaces that might be the usual suspects, and maybe some of those places we know we hang on to tension that is a little bit more sneaky. So just allow yourself to be aware or notice those sensations with curiosity, without self judgment. We welcome and invite those sensations as messengers. And sometimes, if we maybe make a shift in thinking, if someone was trying to give us a message, we might listen to that instead of what may be our go to, and mine is for sure, is just to say, oh, I'm going to ignore that. That'll be changing, or I need to gut my way through this. So, if we think about those sensations as messengers, ask ourselves what they're trying to tell us, if there's a need for change, if there's actually a need to see if we might be able to work through that discomfort, an opportunity to change or remain the same in a way that suits you today. And I thought we would try today a little bit of pranayama at the beginning of class. So, for a moment here, as you're breathing in and breathing out, just becoming aware of breath and expansion. And today, if it makes sense for you, we're going to see if we can guide the breath. So as you inhale, breathing in and noticing if you can take that breath into a particular place. And maybe it's a place that's calling to you with sensation. Maybe it's a place you're trying to relax through breath. Maybe it's a place that simply needs some expansion with that breath. This directed breath, drawing our life force energy into a particular area. Breathing into a space for maybe it's just one or two breaths. Perhaps we're breathing into a space for our entire pose. bringing not only the attention of the brain and all the great stuff the brain can do for that area, drawing that life force energy to that area for healing, for anything that prana can provide. So, a few more breaths with that idea in mind, breathing into a space. And maybe we add this idea of exhaling from that space what no longer serves you. Using that breath throughout the practice today if it's helpful, if it resonates. We always offer ourselves the invitation not to focus on breath, letting the body breathe itself. When you're ready, just taking that nice deep inhale to give ourselves a little expansion as you exhale, let it release through the mouth. We are going to stay on our back for the first two poses. Our first pose is banana asana. And so I'll instruct you through that. If you know where you're headed, go for it. We're going to begin on that right side. So our arms reach overhead, our feet and our heels, maybe more accurately to think about, walk off the right side. Our arms reach over to that right side. So we feel expansion through that left side body. And we may know that that reaching up and over, compressing the shoulder is just not a good idea for ourselves today. And if that's the case, the arm can come out into a T. It can be supported by a pillow or a yoga block if you have it handy. Opening this left side body and beginning not only some expansion of muscle and connective tissue, but maybe some space for more breath. Again, if it's helpful, breathing into a space, directing your inhale into a particular area. Allowing yourself to imagine that you're releasing what no longer serves you from that area. You may play with the cross of the ankles, one ankle on top or the other, to see if that deepens the sensation in a way that's helpful to you in this pose. If we take our yawn class, this is much like we would like our triangle to feel. The side body opening physically is really helpful for some of our low back pain. So we're releasing this area of the glutes, the glute med, the glute men that often have trigger points. For some of us, we can get some tightness in our obliques that refers pain to our abdomen and our back between our shoulder blades. We're releasing that arm, that tricep, the underneath part of the arm that can refer pain to or tension to the top ridge of your shoulder. If we're drawing breath into a particular area with our attention, as I mentioned, we might do that for a few breaths. We might do it for the entire pose. And we don't have to send it to the same area for that entire time. Maybe as we're resting here, more comes up in your awareness. And as we uncover some of those layers, we can attend to those layers with breath, with our notice, maybe even by adjusting the pose if need be. Reminding ourselves that nothing in our practice should be painful. It might be uncomfortable, and only we know if that discomfort is leading to release or if that discomfort is leading to pain. And that is the messenger that we want to listen to readjust or to come out of the pose. When you're ready, we're going to begin to walk ourselves back through center. Legs come towards center, arms come down by the side for a moment. In the center of your mat, just notice that left side compared to the right side. Any similarities or differences that might be present. We'll begin to walk our way over to the other side. So taking heels, bringing them over to the left side, arms reach back up and overhead. And as those arms reach, we make any adjustments we need for that arm that's reaching the furthest. So now we're opening that right side body. Particularly if you happen to be right-handed, often this sensation in this right side and in that right shoulder might feel tighter. There might be a level of discomfort. Again, perhaps placing a pillow under the arm, yoga block, or just simply letting that arm travel out into a T can alleviate some of that discomfort. Playing with the cross of the ankles, you may want to have one ankle on top and may sense whether or not that increases some of the sensation of this pose. As you're settling into being in that stillness, noticing how it feels to be here in the first minute or so of this pose as compared to the first minute or so of the other side. This awareness of both sides and recognition that often those sides are not really even or balanced. And so we may experience the pose on this side very differently than the other side. If using that breath to guide prana is helpful to you, we imagine we're breathing into a space. And as we exhale, we remind ourselves that we can release what no longer serves us from that space. If it's helpful to you, taking a moment to notice this line of the stretch. We begin at the feet and travel up through the outside of the shin, the knee. Maybe noticing how we're feeling in that outside thigh, the hip structure right by the hip bone. Noticing that side body between the hip bone and the bottom of the rib cage. Noticing the bottom of the rib cage all the way to the underarm. Underarm through that upper arm, elbow, and pinky finger. This attention and awareness of all of this line of connective tissue that might be releasing, becoming more pliable. We'll begin to ease back through the center. Arms come down by your side, giving yourself an opportunity here just to shake and wiggle in any way the body might be asking for. We're going to move right into our next pose, and it's one of those where we're working towards symmetry. It's knees into chest. Now, a choice here might be happy baby. So you're welcome to go into that happy baby pose if that's a favorite. Knees into chest or happy baby, releasing that low back, giving ourselves a little bit more of a neutral spine after arms have been reaching up and overhead. And as always, there may be a spot here that makes more sense for your body. Maybe it's not knees into chest. Maybe it's not happy baby. So asking yourself if there is a place that you would like to move into, trusting the body's wisdom to guide you. As we settle in, taking a moment here to notice if there's tension in the neck or shoulders. Sometimes holding on to those legs might even make us lift the head, create more tension through that area. We're going to see if we can release it. That might mean actually bringing something behind your head to support it. Noticing compression in this particular pose. So we often focus on how it feels to open up, to release, and to begin each pose. Often we're in some sensation of stretch. But noticing for yourself here where you have compression, where we're squeezing tissue rather than expanding tissue. And perhaps noticing the sensations of compression. And sometimes we don't have words, there are no adjectives to describe it. It's just a knowing or a felt sense. The wisdom of the body tells us about that particular space. And sometimes there are adjectives. This focusing on sensation helps quiet the thinking mind. This focus on breath helps quiet the thinking mind. All tools to ground and center, opportunities to be present. we'll begin to release the pose. Allow yourself to come on out in, again, any way that makes sense for you. We're going to take our time, but we are going to come on up into a seated position. And we're going to move through a forward fold. So again, if there's something handy, if you happen to have blocks at home or a pillow that helps you have a seat and lift your seat out or a little bit higher off the floor, you may want to grab those. We're going to go into an asymmetrical pose. And we're going to begin to stretch and open up hamstrings. So I am not mirroring you. This is my right leg. So we're going to go ahead and bend in that right leg. And we take it to where it makes sense. It might be down by our ankle. It might be a little bit closer to our core. And from here, we're going to find our forward fold. And our forward fold might already be happening while we're sitting tall. To be honest, we may have a really tight hamstring or a lot of compression in the front of the thigh. So it's okay if our forward fold looks more like we're sitting tall. If you're able, we're going to find a way that you can fold forward and allow either that head to rest in that dead hang, or you can support the head with the hands. If you have things at home that you can pile up, pillows and blankets, to actually give a little hug and rest, that would be a great way to rest here in what's going to amount to our opening of this back left side. That back left side of the leg, it could be anywhere from the heel all the way to the back of the head. If we can, we try to let ourselves remain muscularly soft and let gravity do the work here. And one of the places I check in first is to make sure, because it's my inclination is to try to reach with those arms, try to get a little bit deeper. And maybe we can think about those arms just simply settling somewhere on thighs or the floor, to allow shoulders to release, to allow head to release a little bit further. Noticing if we're gripping on the top of the thigh. Could we let that go either by simply noticing or using that longer exhale to see if it might release? Now, it's possible that tension stays with us, and that's okay. We acknowledge that. Today, it's just not going to release. Breathing fully here and maybe directing the breath, breathing into a space that's drawn your attention, inviting yourself to release on the exhale what no longer serves you. And as you know, if this breath is not useful, it's okay to be simply breathing, to notice breath if that helps keep you present, to notice those qualities of expansion and sound, perhaps temperature and rhythm. It's also okay today if all of that feels like a lot of doing and you're here to be. Taking what you need from my suggestions and leaving the rest. We're going to begin to slowly release the pose, walking ourselves back up. Maybe taking an opportunity to counterbalance, to stretch, to release, little windshield wiper legs if that makes sense for you. We'll be moving to that other side when you're ready. So it'll be the left leg this time that bends in somewhere along that leg. Folding forward, if that makes sense, to get a sense of release through the back of those legs or the back of your right leg specifically. Adjusting if you need to with something under your seat in order to find this release. Knowing that you can support the head with the hands, inviting the arms to be relaxed, inviting the front of the thigh to release. Settling in, pardon me, to this side and taking that moment as we settle into the stillness to notice how this leg feels compared to the other, or maybe even how that low back feels compared to the other side. Noticing those similarities or differences. Using breath to remain present, breathing into a space that's drawing your attention. Exhaling what no longer serves you from that space. Taking a moment to notice shoulders, jaw, and neck. Recognizing if we're still holding tension in that particular area. Often, if that's a chronic area of tension for you, it's not necessarily in our notice. It's automatic and it hangs out and creates interesting sensations in the body while we're going throughout our day. So when we check in, sometimes we bring that awareness, it will release. Sometimes when we check in, that awareness stays with us and there isn't release. It's one of the things we can transfer to our entire day. If there's a chronic area of tightness for you, periodically checking in, noticing that space, and perhaps if that check in allows you to release it. We'll slowly begin to release. Take a moment to move in any way that you need to, however, the body may be asking to be released here. We're going to counter this forward fold with a back bend. And I want to give you two choices because I know melting heart may not be everybody's favorite. So we might come to our belly and be in Sphinx, or our version of Sphinx. And Sphinx is where those elbows are underneath shoulders. They may be beyond. Some of us, depending on the back, may be resting on our bellies with our head slightly supported. If you are in melting heart, the idea here is that we get the knees right underneath the hips. We walk the hands, rest the head, and let the belly drop towards the floor. Now, this is where you can use a block, a blanket, a pillow over those crossed forearms to create a little less intensity. So either finding melting heart or Sphinx pose, or your version of Sphinx pose. Just a quick reminder, if you are in Sphinx, we'd like to send those legs pretty far apart. If we've got those elbows underneath shoulders, you may want to support the head by resting your chin on your fists, or maybe by resting your head in the palms. We're letting the weight of that upper body draw that front side body to the floor. As is true in all of our yin practice, we let gravity do the work. We're just properly loading joints here, and then gravity kicks in to release. The other component is time. Those longer holds are required in order to help get to that deepest stuff, that connective tissue, in order to find some release. So as you settle in, perhaps those settling longer exhales, especially if you're in melting heart, can help release some of what you're holding on to. And then moving into the breath of your choice, maybe it's that directed breath. Maybe it's being aware of the physical qualities of the breath. Maybe it's just something as simple as I breathe in and I breathe out. This release of the front side body helps us with the tug of the back side body. When we release the front, we release the back. Same holds true for when we release the back, we release the front. Our melting heart may have an additional release through the neck and the shoulder area. Perhaps it's helpful to tune into any sensation that's gaining your awareness. And if sensation isn't present, maybe we begin to move our way from the feet up through the top of the head to check in. Check in at different spaces and just simply notice what's happening in that space. When you're ready to release, some of us might simply just bring that head down to the floor. Some of us might shift back into child's pose, which is actually where we're headed for our next pose. So find a space for a moment that feels releasing to you. And then moving into child's pose when you're ready, knowing that if pressing back into child's pose is not a great option because of knees, shoulders, elbows, we can always flip it over to our backs to draw knees into chest. So taking a few moments, move around, wiggling around. In this next pose, we've been doing 4-minute holds, which is a little different. Normally we do 5. I wanted to fit in a few more poses today. I would like to extend our child's pose into 6 minutes, just a slightly longer hold. And for many of us, it's one of those poses that actually brings some ease into the body. But with that said, if that 6 minutes while you are resting here is too much, letting yourself release it, finding a way that feels relaxing to you to release the pose, and join us in our next one. So 6 minutes in child's pose, or our adaptation where we're flipping over to our back and drawing knees into chest. This is going to be one of those poses I'm a little bit more quiet. And the idea here, because especially a child's pose, the longer we rest in it, can feel more restorative, more releasing. And I don't want to interrupt your space with my chatter. Do settle in though when you find where you'd like to be. Give yourself those nice deep inhales and longer exhales. And as you're settling into the pose, noticing this balance, we were just in a deep back bend. And that area that we felt or sensed that back bend, and in my case, it's always between my bottom rib cage and the top of my sacrum. Bringing some awareness to this counterbalance to notice that area. Maybe we go back to this idea of noticing opposites, front this time compared to back. We're back in areas of compression that was very similar to our knees drawing into chest, especially if you are knees drawing into chest to modify child's pose. Where do you feel compression? Where do you feel a squeezing of tissue? And if it's helpful, returning to directing the inhale into a particular area. Exhaling, releasing what no longer serves you. I'm going to be quiet for the next few minutes. I'll pop back in just so we know that we have audio, and then I'll pop it back out. So settling in, experiencing the pose on any level you want to bring awareness to, or it may be a pose where you would like to simply let go. Let go of observation, let go of noticing, and allow yourself just to be. A moment to bring awareness back to breath or physical sensation, reminding ourselves if in this longer hold your feet are falling asleep, that's a great message from the body that something needs to change. It might need to change briefly, or you may come out of the pose until we move into the next one. We'll begin to ease out of the pose, to stretch, to open in a way that makes sense for your body. If you are resting on your back, we're going to meet in a seated position to make some choices about where we're headed next. We're going to have a few places to go here. So we're going to be going either into our butterfly, where those soles of the feet are together. There are going to be some of you who enjoy our dragonfly a little bit more in that forward fold. For those of us who are in deep compression, in that squeezing in the front of the thighs, you might look a little bit more like turtle pose, where the soles of the feet are on. You might be reaching forward or just allowing your arms to rest. So butterfly, soles of feet together, dragonfly, legs out into our letter V, or our turtle pose to come into that forward fold. When you're ready, allowing yourself to settle into that space again that makes sense for you. This one will not be a 6-minute hold. We'll go back to our 4-minute hold. In some form or fashion, we're hoping not only to release this backside body, but to also have an opportunity to release that inner thigh area, that groin area, a release of the inside edge of the legs. Perhaps we're focusing on the breath, guiding that inhale into a particular area, exhaling to release what no longer serves you from that area. Observing the qualities of the breath, maybe expansion and release, sound, temperature, or rhythm. Maybe we're tuning in to our internal sensation and experience. Where do we feel this particular pose? We'll begin to slowly release for those of us in that forward fold, restacking your spine, extending those legs if it feels good to give them a little bit of wiggle. We have time for one more pose before we go into our final relaxation. And I want to invite you guys, and I know most of you have practiced for a long period of time, to find a pose that you like, one that appeals to you. And if it's a two-sided pose, I'll let you know when we're 2.5 minutes through. If there's not one that's occurring for you today or not one that's coming to mind, constructive rest pose is always a great one. You're going to see me go into legs up the wall since I have a nice handy wall here. So that's a possibility. Just a reminder, if you're going into constructive rest pose, you're resting on your back. Your feet are wide, knees come together, and we wrap our arms around that upper body. So finding your way into a pose, a favorite, or we can, if you like, redo one that we've done that is a favorite, and allowing yourself to settle into that pose. This time we'll be there for 5 minutes. So these a little bit of an in between here. We did our child's pose for a little bit longer, the rest of our poses for about 4 minutes. So I'm going to throw my legs up on the wall. You choosing wherever you'd like to be. I'm hoping I'm not going to make too much noise here as I go up on the wall. And I always like to say it's worth noting what you do choose. We often know our favorites and, oh, which ones feel so good. And sometimes that stays the same. It's consistent each time. You'll pick that same one, or sometimes you're responding to your body's intuition that says, oh, today this would be a great idea. So just noting what you picked. And again, if you're in a one-sided, meaning perhaps you're in a twist or you're doing one leg, I'll let you know when we're halfway through. For those of us like me who are doing the same thing with both legs or both sides of the body, we'll stay in our pose for our 5 minutes. In this last pose, we're going to let go, if we can, of noticing the breath or of guiding the breath. In this last pose, we want the breath to be easy, traveling where it chooses and how it chooses without effort. We're going to step back from guiding prana with our breath and allow our body's wisdom to send that prana wherever it might be needed. If you're in a one-sided pose, we're going to switch sides, moving to the other side now. If for those of us who are in a symmetrical pose, we'll stay here, resting for the next 2.5 minutes in the same place. We're going to begin to release the pose, giving yourselves a few moments to wiggle here. We are going to be moving into final relaxation. If you've cooled down and you're ready to grab a sweatshirt, or if you'd like to grab your socks or a blanket to cover up. The invitation at the end of class is to find a space for yourself that feels like it brings the most ease into the body. Does not have to look like a yoga shape, doesn't have to be any particular yoga pose. Just a space where you can relax, that we can be without muscle tension, and where you'll feel comfortable resting here for the next 8 minutes or so. When you have found that space for yourself, give yourself that nice deep inhale, that longer exhale into the weight of the body, noticing that connection. Where is your body connected to the floor? A few more inhales and exhales to settle into that connection. And then we invite the body to once again just breathe itself. The breath is traveling where it chooses, traveling in a way and a rhythm that it chooses, with little effort to that breath. We invite the mind to quiet. And as that mind considers quieting, often it looks more like longer pauses between thoughts. And if we are having thoughts, we name that. I'm having a thought. Rather than efforting into quietness, we ride the rhythms of that quietness. And for these last few minutes of class, we let go of all of the doing. And even though we have been resting in stillness, there's a lot of doing that's happening inside our body, physically and energetically. And we let all that go. And we invite ourselves to just simply be, to be resting here in a sense of ease, to be resting in well being, if that is present for you. Maybe to even be resting in a sense of peace. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that you're resting in, inviting that deeper inhale and that longer exhale. Beginning to reawaken the body, wiggling fingers and toes, circling wrists and ankles. It might feel good to stretch arms overhead. It might feel good to draw knees into the chest. And in your own way and your own time, we're going to begin to bring ourselves into a seated position that feels comfortable to you, whatever that may be. As you come to your comfortable seat, we're going to do a little bit of alternate nostril breathing today. And we're going to do it in a way that to me feels more accessible if we're out in the world. So typically we would close off one nostril using the hand to do one side and then the other. We're going to really try to use our mind's eye in order to do this particular breath. So it becomes available to us when we're out in the world, when we might need more focus. We might need to remain present and to help us really balance out the energy of both sides of the body. And to use our mind's eye, what we're thinking about today, and I'll guide you through this entire exercise. So we're thinking about beginning with the right side. So your right side, the idea here is that somehow I'm breathing in. Now I might picture my right nostril. I might picture my right lung and collarbone area. I often visualize it coming up my arm as I breathe in. And as I exhale out, it goes down that left side or out that left side nostril. So know that I'm mirroring you here. So we'll breathe in the right side and exhale out the left side. Now, that visualization is tough. You are more than welcome to close off one nostril as you breathe in and exhale out through the other. We're going to do one side for 10 breaths, and then we're going to switch it and go the opposite direction. So taking that nice deep inhale, longer exhale, we get ready to breathe up that right side or inside that right or up that right nostril. And as we exhale, it goes out that left nostril or left side. Inhaling, right side, right nostril. Exhaling, left side. Inhaling, right side. 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 Exhaling, left side. Two more rounds. Inhaling, right side. Exhaling, left side. Last time, inhaling, right side. Exhaling, left side. We're shifting now. So when you're ready, we inhale and imagine we're inhaling through left side. Exhale through right side. Inhaling left side. Exhale right side. Inhaling left side. Exhale right side. Inhale, left side. Exhale, right side. Inhale, left side. Exhale, right side. Inhale, left side. Exhale, right side. One more breath cycle here. Inhaling left side. Exhaling right side. And then simply breathing in through both nostrils. Exhaling through both nostrils. Returning to your normal breath for 2 or 3 more breaths. And then taking a moment to notice how you're feeling here at the end of class. How are you feeling in the physical body? And perhaps how you're feeling in the mental and emotional body. And if this gesture feels okay to you, we'll place palms together, resting thumbs right in front of our hearts. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is honored and grateful for the light in each of you. I bow to you. Namaste. Thank you all.